Question is that people are not clear on capitalism because capitalism is a very vicious system, but what it does is it embroideries its viciousness with all sorts of elusive terms. For example, many of us would support capitalism because we actually believe that in a capitalist system, there's a chance for us to get the same amount of money as Rockefeller gets, because we're told that under capitalism there is equality of opportunity. So that we feel that if this year we didn't make as much as Rockefeller made, then we got to work a little bit harder, and next year we're going to make it. But if we carefully examine a capitalist system, we will see that it's based on exploitation, because the viciousness of capitalism, and the reason why once black people examine it, we can never be for it, is that under a capitalist system, the fruits of those who labor are enjoyed by somebody else. That is, those who do the laboring, the fruits of their labor, they don't enjoy it. As a matter of fact, we could say under capitalism that the fruits of the labor of the toiling masses are enjoyed by those who do not labor. And again, as black people, we have clear examples of it. If we were to get the fruits of our labor from slavery, just from slavery, all we got to do is go to Nixon and say, hey, look, you give us the fruits of our labor from slavery and we forget the score. We would be the richest people in the country, again, because under capitalism, the individual exploits the labor of the people. Now, let me show you how backward capitalism is. It's a backward system. We could make two statements about capitalism to show how backward it is. About America. America is a capitalist country. It's thoroughly capitalist. It's an imperialist country. But we could say that, number one, America is the most technologically advanced country in the world. And that's an undeniable fact. It's a truism. It's a truism. America is the most scientifically developed country in the world. And right under that, we could say a second fact, which will show you how backward America is. We could say that America, in 1945, made for her people better cars than she does in 1973. And if you analyze this, you'll see how vicious the system is, because here's America with its great technological skills, its great scientific ability, and rather than making a safe car for people that will last 20 years, which they can do with the scientific knowledge that's at their fingertip, they rather take this knowledge and build a car which will break down every 2 years, so you're forced to buy another car. Thus, you see, under capitalism, what they do is they take their scientific skills, and rather than using it for the benefit of the people, they use it to further exploit the people. And certainly this type of system is too backward.
I think Nelson was next. Yeah,
I concur with.
Greetings and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might find yourself. Welcome to this special Black Power Media, All African People's Revolutionary Party tribute to the 80th birthday of Kwame Ture. And as we heard there, we're going to hear a lot more from Kwame and those who have continued to struggle around the ideas with which he did, and to build the organization that he helped found. And to help us work through this program is Sister Chavanduka Simvanu, and I want to welcome her. And greetings to you, Sister, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Jared. And thank you to Black Power Media for hosting this tribute today. Of course, you know, folks in the AAPRP, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, we really, really have a great love for Kwame Ture and all that he did to help us raise our own consciousness and to stress the importance of organization with all of us. So many of us have been in the party for 40, since its inception. And you'll hear today from some of those who've been around for a long time, who reflect on the work that Kwame did and how he impacted the organization and other organizations, as well as them as organizers. We'll hear from some young heads too, those who didn't know Kwame and weren't around when he was here physically, but they were impacted by him as well, and they understand the impact. So we just really want to thank everyone who's with us today. I see some shout outs from party members all over the world, as well as the other members and supporters of our community. So we thank you all for being here. We're going to listen to some Kwame Ture excerpts, look at some videos. We'll hear some reflections. We'll do a brief bio about his life, mainly about the last 30 years of his life. And we'll have some live guests in the studio as well as we go along. So we invite everybody to just, open your minds. And it's kind of like being at church, actually.
Best
you can
kind.
relate to that. I mean, when I listen to Kwame, that's kind of where I go. So we can just go ahead and get it rolling.
Absolutely. And everybody, as you're doing it, please comment, like, share, invite people to check it out. And you'll have a chance to engage, raise some questions, and as was said, hear from live guests as well. So we will continue moving on right here with our special tribute to Kwame Ture, hearing from him himself. So ready for the revolution.
Revolutionary point of view. There is an objective and an ideology. There's been much confusion in the world since the 1900s, and this confusion was spread and unfortunately aided by the Soviet Union. That Marxism-Leninism was the only revolutionary ideology in the world. Of course, as a young man studying Marxism-Leninism, this created a lot of confusion for me. The first aspect of the confusion was found in the fact that if one is a Marxist-Leninist, one must be atheist. Certainly atheism in the African community, they won't even, you tell them, they said, no, you know you believe in God. Don't you know you believe in God? You ain't no atheist. So there's just no way. And the second point was their limited view on nationalism and its role in struggle. These are my two conflicting, of course there are many others, I'm just pointing out two. So since the 1960s, those of us who are conscious strugglers have been really examining this problem. Conscientialism was written in 1964. It was called, subtitled, Philosophy for Decolonization. Therefore, the philosophy is giving. Our party has as its objective, I've never said anything since tonight, I've said pan-Africanism is objective. Our ideology is Nkrumahism Tourism. Therefore, we do, and I'm sorry I didn't know, but anybody who's familiar with our party knows that our party's ideology is Nkrumahism Tourism. Our objective is Pan-Africanism. Therefore, it's the thoughts and actions of Nkrumahism Tourism, which represents all the struggles of Africans who came before, Cabral, all the others, leading us to Pan-Africanism. So we do have this problem solved for our party. We agree with you. There is much confusion around Pan-Africanism, and most Pan-Africanists do not have an ideology. Some try to use Marxism-Leninism to get them to Pan-Africanism. That caused a lot of confusion. I just gave two examples. But our party has no confusion here. Nkrumahism Tourism is our ideology leading us to Pan-Africanism.
I met Kwame Ture in about 1962. We were both organizers with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I heard about Kwame from his work in NAG, the National Action Group, and his work on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, his work in Washington, D.C., and the work that he did on the Freedom Rides, time that he spent in Parchman Penitentiary, which is a notorious penitentiary in Mississippi. Someone in the community goes to that prison and makes it back, and they're in halfway good shape, they're a hero. That's how terrible the prison was. I visited Kwame in Greenwood, Mississippi, because he was a project director for SNCC in that area. I was a project director in Southwest Mississippi, in Franklin County, right on the border with Louisiana, right on the Mississippi River. So we would visit each project and just to see what people were doing. I heard Kwame speak, and and we gave him the nickname Star Michael because he was always in the press, he was always doing this. It was, I think, 1963 when he and I were attending a conference, a SNCC conference down on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And we rented a campus down there. Ku Klux Klan came and burned a cross on a Friday night while most of the people were in town, you know, partying. So a friend of mine and I, a brother that I work with, we carried, you know, we was in a nonviolent organization, but we carried firearms. So we were going to wait until they came back the next night, and we were going to fire them up. So they came. He and I came out of our room with our guns, and we looked up, and Kwame Ture was coming out of another room with his gun. So, needless to say, we chased him away. And I think it was at that point where we began to really, get kind of tight, because we were in a nonviolent organization, but we didn't see nonviolence as a principle. We saw nonviolence as a tactic only. Then, of course, in 1967 was when Kwame Ture was invited to become Kwame Nkrumah's political secretary. And he went to Guinea. So that opened up Guinea for us. So that's how I was able to go to Guinea and to actually be a student of Kwame Nkrumah and Stokely Ture. So this is where we began to form, the study to prepare ourselves to launch the All African People's Revolutionary Party. This is one of the things that I really appreciated about Kwame the most. His organizing ability, his organizing style, and his tenacity. The brother worked without fear. And these are the things that really impressed me about Kwame. He was like a brother, a friend, a comrade, a freedom fighter, not only with myself, but with almost everybody that you would talk with, that has met and spent any amount of time with Kwame Ture. You feel like it's family. So it's an honor for me to just reflect a little about this brother, this comrade, this fellow revolutionary freedom fighter. And looking at our situation today, looking at how we've grown ideologically, how we have moved qualitatively, organizationally, I'm sure that those red ants are whispering in his ear and telling him the progress that we're making him very happy. So I just want to say, Brother Kwame, rest in victory. Struggle continues. Ready for revolution.
Hi, this is Asari Sobukwe. Joined the AAPOP back in 1988. Can you believe that? I first met KT. I first met him in 1994 at what we call the 5 Cs. We met in Atlanta. First time, I traveled to the US, met in Atlanta. There were some meetings there, talking about some strategies and different things, and I met Kwame Ture there amongst many other people. And one of the things that struck me more than anything was his sheer presence. His fantastic storytelling is phenomenal, but also as a strategic thinker. He was absolutely brilliant strategic thinker, very engaging, and he's a man of the people, very humble. When you meet him behind the scenes, very, very humble man, very tall as well, very, very tall guy. And there's so many things he's brought to the party. Of course, his vast experience from the civil rights movement through to SNCC, through to the Black Panther Party, through to the AAPRP, and building a phenomenal organization, to his relationships with so many different African countries and famous African leaders, from Kwame Nkrumah, Stokely Ture, you name them, he's met these people. But he was very clear about internationalism, about the importance of working with the Palestinians, the American Indians, the Irish struggle, and understanding that other struggles around the world can link in with our struggles. And he was very strong on that. He was also very strong anti-Zionist. So he's very, very clear about Zionism and its role in the world, and its role that Israel has played in the, in the exploitation of the African continent. His ability to analyze and understand politics, his ability to explain concepts like pan-africanism, socialism, Africa's role in major religions, the role of women. There's so many different subjects, the role of youth and young people, the primacy of Africa. So many different issues he was very good at breaking down and understanding. And as I said, most of all, he just loved humanity and he loved his people, and he lived and died and breathed the struggle.
I met Kwame probably in 81 or so when he came to San Jose State University, where I was a student, and he came and did a recruitment drive. And at that time we had several very, very strong work-study circles. We were really controlling the campus climate. And San Jose State probably has less than 5% African students on campus. And I think on that day, we probably had every African on campus at that event. Because we were just every day propagandizing the campus with leaflets. We just saturated the campus and excited the campus. The campus was electric. And he, as usual, electrified the campus and just fired it up and just, really inspired us as organizers, inspired the campus. And, we brought him there almost every year after that. So that was the first time I met him, and I remember I was nervous as hell. He was, he was just such a giant figure, such a giant icon of our people's movement of the 60s and SNCC and Black Panther Party, Black Power movement. And so I was a little intimidated and nervous and didn't know what to say. I don't think I said much. But as time went on, I actually began coordinating Kwame Ture's recruitment drive for the whole party. And I did that for almost, I think, 7 years. But this was later on in the late 80s. I don't, my dates are probably off, but so wherever he went when he came into the country to do recruitment drives, I was the central coordinator for that. And so of course I got to know him a lot more through that responsibility and that role that I played for the party, as well as getting to know people in the party in all the different chapters and places. And he never complained, no matter what kind of airplane or how many stops or who was picking him up. Other memories of our dear brother Kwame, I remember talking to him. He talked a lot about his mother and how much she influenced him and influenced his, just some of his, standing up for truth, and he learned, I forgot what he said, he learned confidence or courage or something he talked about that he learned, that he got from his mother. And he really acknowledged, and you could tell he really loved his mother a lot and acknowledged a lot of who he was from what she gave him and what she taught him. I remember we had a delegation after the PDG, the People's Democratic Party of Guinea, was allowed to resurface again in the 90s. I believe it was like 92 or so. It was a party delegation. I was living here in Ghana at the time with my daughter, and so I went to Guinea and met the delegation. The rest of the delegation came from different parts of the U.S., and Kwame was there to greet us, and we toured Guinea. He took us everywhere, and you could tell all the different places we went in Guinea, the people loved him. He lived very humbly. The house he lived in, we saw it, it was very humble living. People wondered, if he was like living large in Africa and he had like whatever. He was very, very, very living a very humble life with the masses, for the masses, and always organizing for the masses.
My name is Nia Deotu. I was born in Ghana, and I heard of Stokely Carmichael in the 60s. And in 1969, I left Ghana to attend school in the University of Akron in Ohio. while I am attending school, Kwame Ture came to give a lecture at the school, and I was one of the participants. So after the lecture, we were told that Kwame Ture is organizing the All African People's Revolutionary Party, which is Kwame Nkrumah's own party. Before I left Ghana, I was a member of the Ghana Young Pioneers. So I was very interested. So I joined the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So in 1988, I left the US and came back home to Ghana. In fact, it was Kwame Ture who really influenced my decision of coming back to Ghana than staying in the United States and trying to organize. So when I came in Ghana in 1988, the following year 1989, we had African Liberation Day in Holy Gardens at Kwame Nkrumah Circle. That was the attempt to, through that we organized our first work-study group in Ghana. While we were in Ghana, Kwame Ture passed through Accra about 3 or 4 times, where he came to talk to those who we have organized. And when he comes, he always in a low profile. You don't want no publicity, but just to come and do organization, strengthen the members, and then he goes back to Guinea. Whilst in Ghana, usually he stays with Akbar Mohammed, and many times he was asked to, go and dine in some of these big hotels. He always declined, and he liked the people's places of eating. He wanted to be with the masses. So Golden Tulip or Novotel and all that is out of his agenda. While organizing in Ghana, we had a meeting, cadre meeting in Guinea. So I had the opportunity to represent the AAPRP Ghana chapter in Guinea. And while we were in Guinea, we stayed in his apartment. And I'll tell you, he's one of the humble celebrities I've known, if I put it that way. Because while we were there, he fed us, and even he was willing to wash our dishes. But no, we said no, and most of the time I go in the sink and do it. Comrade Imani from Guinea-Bissau also helped. And other, we said no, you are elder brother and comrade, we can allow you to serve us or to that extent. I remember while he was in Ohio, he said something which pricked my conscience, which he said, human beings, if we come into this world, eat, drink, sleep, have children, and we don't belong to any organization working for our people, then we just like some animal, a goat or a cow who come and eat, graze, and die off. So I determined I won't be like any cow or a goat. I don't be a human being.
One of the things that makes Kwame so dynamic and memorable for me, if I was to name really the top three things that I can think of, one is that the struggle is eternal. You know, we are not eternal as individuals, but the struggle is eternal, and it's what work we do is what lasts through time and space. And the other thing is that basically Kwame helped to demystify the whole process of becoming a better organizer, a better activist, a better people's servant, so to speak. He took the idea away from that it was some kind of Superman or somebody who was special and had special talents or whatever, that as an organizer. He took that away, and he also gave a lot of encouragement, allowed us to know that we could do what he was doing.
Kwame Ture clarifies to me that there is no favor in struggle. To me, that is what is most significant about him. His understanding that he himself was not special. We recognize Kwame as a great child of Africa, not because he was earmarked for struggle or possessed some divine gift. All that we know him for, and that about him which inspires us, was not bestowed upon him, and instead was honed by and through struggle. Struggle is not a task for the chosen, and it's certainly not a task for the few. It is each of our responsibility to pick up struggle where time and other means have caused our ancestors and elders to depart their fronts, and to bring others along with us as we do so. Kwame embodied this philosophy of struggle, continuing to do the latter, even though he has long left us in this realm. On his 80th birth anniversary, as we celebrate the life and the unwavering struggle of our party elder, I am inspired to approach the struggle with as much diligence and fervor as Kwame did. Eternal peace be unto Kwame Ture on this, the day of his birth. Ready for revolution.
On behalf of the Zimbabwe-Cuba Friendship Association, on behalf of the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company and the Mass Emphasis Positive Action and Creativity Youth Brigade, I would like to extend a thank you to the All-African People's Revolutionary Party for asking me to do this video in connection to Kwame Ture's inspiration to me as we are preparing worldwide to celebrate his 80th, what would have been his 80th birthday on June 29th. There's a biological component to the story in connection to the bloodline. My father, Obi Egbuna Sr., first became acquainted with Kwame Ture in 1967 at the Dialectics of Liberation Conference in London, which can be found, the speech can be found in Stokely Speaks from Black Power Back to Pan-Africanism. He introduced Brother Kwame that day. And my father was the co-founder of the Black Panther Party in London and the Black Power movement in London, spearheading it along with another brother named Michael X. So just like Brother Kwame and many of his contemporaries in North America and beyond, they saw the Black Power concept and the Black Panther symbol as inseparable. My next encounter with Brother Kwame was in 1977 when he came to stay with us in Iowa City. My next encounter with Brother Kwame was in 1979, marching for African Liberation Day. My next encounter with Brother Kwame was in 1986, after hearing him give the presentation, Bombs in Africa Could Get You Bombs in America, after the Reagan administration cowardly bombed Libya, April 15, 1986. My next encounter with Brother Kwame was at the University of District of Columbia in 1988. My next encounter with him was in 1991 at UDC and Howard University while he was dealing with the Kwame Ture recruitment drive. My correspondence with him began in 1992 back and forth to Guinea. Brother Kwame was inspirational to me on a multitude of levels, being diligent in my correspondence habits, Anyone who knows Kwame knows if you wrote him a letter, you would get a letter back, even if you had to struggle to read the handwriting. You knew you were going to get something from Post Office 3567, Republic of Guinea, West Africa. My interaction with Brother Kwame was centered primarily around building an African United Front on a cross-generational level, worldwide African anti-Zionist front work, which I worked with him on for 7.5 years in my capacity through the Pan-African Student Youth Movement, smashing the Democratic and Republican Party work, smashing the FBI and CIA work, just how our generation, the 1990s generation, could take the mantle and attempt to elevate that work. So we love Brother Kwame because of his accessibility to the people, his humility amongst the people, and like he told us in our last conversation, if we don't do more work than him, it meant he didn't do his job. So the fact that he didn't behave like many in his generation who treat organizing like athletes do their records. They don't want those who come after them to elevate things. So he was a refreshing alternative to that approach. Long live Kwame Ture. Long live the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Long live the African fighting spirit. One unified African people, one unified socialist Africa.
Hello, daughters and sons of Africa. Our names are DJ Dash, age 10,
and Xavier, age 13.
In the tradition of genuine African resistance, we want to share something special with the masses of our people at home and abroad. Today, June 29th, marks the 78th birthday of one of our boldest and bravest warriors, Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. As many of you know, Brother Kwame transitioned on November 15th, 1998, from prostate cancer. We pay homage to Brother Kwame through this mixtape, which blends African music and Brother Kwame's powerful voice and words.
We are journeying the struggle that began in the Student Non-Violent Coordinating Committee, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, Lowndes County Freedom Organization, the first Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, Students of Black Unity, All African People's Revolutionary Party, and finally, the Democratic Party of Guinea. As a comrade and brother would say, organize, organize, organize. And of course, the slogan of the Democratic Party of Guinea, ready for the revolution. As we will soon be young adults, we want to introduce our peers to Brother Kwame, the same way he introduced his generation to the works of Osagyefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and Ahmed Sekou Touré. We hope this mixtape makes Mother Africa and our scattered children proud.
Yes, indeed. Respect. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that piece that you saw at the end is was made by some young people that Brother Obi, who you saw earlier in a video clip, he works with them. They're part of the Mass Emphasis Children's Theater. And in 1998, when we commemorated the 20th anniversary of Kwame's transition, his sons, Bokar and Alpha Yaya, they created an exhibit about his life and work, and that exhibit premiered in Guinea. So this mixtape was created by this young people. And again, it shows that the impact that a life can have on future generations. And that's why it's important for us to do our work today, because it will have an effect on the future. So we thank Brother Obi for that work that the young people did. I also wanted to mention that that exhibit is it's in storage right now. It premiered in Conakry in 1998, but it will, in 2018, but it will be coming back out. And in fact, we'll have a virtual mini tour of the exhibit ready on Kwame's actual birthday this Tuesday. Okay, so we want people to stay aware and be ready for that premiere.
Absolutely. And can you imagine that some popular scholarship over recent years has actually tried to argue that Ture had a diminished influence over the African world as he got older and moved beyond the height of the so-called height of the civil rights struggle? So, I mean, imagine that as evidence just there again shows how false such a claim would be. Did we have others who were ready, I think, to join us to talk for a few minutes before we move to the next clip? Maybe we can come. I'm not sure that we do. Maybe we can come back to them. But before we do, was there anything you wanted to say more about either what we heard already or what we're about to see next?
Well, just that, that was living history. Brother Sekou Neblet, Chico Neblet, he's still with us. He still organizes. He lives at home in Africa. And so his life as well spans our struggle, and he's contributed so much. And so we have to make sure that we take care of those who have worked on our behalf. It's Kwame Ture was known to say, if you work for your people, they'll take care of you. So we have to make sure that that is the truth, coming from what we give to those who've worked on our behalf. Other than that, no, I'm hoping that Sister Nehanda and Sister Moremi, I think, may be coming on to share. They've been in the party and been influential in the party for so many years, and especially as an example for women who struggle, women on the front lines. That's one of the things that the party really emphasizes, is that our women have to be on the front line. We are part and parcel of this liberation movement. And so hopefully they will bring some reflections in just a few moments. But we can continue on if nobody else is on camera.
Yeah, I don't think that they're quite just ready just yet.
Okay.
So, but as soon as they are, we'll of course bring them in the next break, so called. Okay. But as I think you were saying, we might be ready to move to the next clip.
Yeah, keep the chat. The chat is live.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can, forgive me if I can just say, we do, as I like to tell folks here, relatively speaking to the YouTube world at Black Power Media, we have a small but incredibly thoughtful audience, which of course is going to expand whenever Brother Kwame Ture and the AAPRP are a subject. So, yeah, I'm not at all surprised that the chat would be live, and at any point that you like, or others as they see fit want to respond or add to anything that has been said, just let me know. Okay. But other than that, I think we are set for the next clip. If
that's okay, great. And Comrade Imani, we need to look out for him because he's in Guinea-Bissau and he should be on live.
I see him in the studio. I'm just trying to make sure everybody's ready to come on screen by turning on their cameras. So if he or anyone else is ready, just turn the camera on, and it looks, and there it is. Boom. The word was heard. That's how it works.
There he is.
Just unmute yourself. One more step. We're almost there. Almost there. There you go.
Ready for revolution, the technological revolution. Viva the technological revolution.
Viva.
Did you want to?
I don't know if you're able to see what we presented already, but can you just give some of your reflections will show up later in the the video, but can you just bring us up to date on what you're doing and how Kwame Ture and his life and work has impacted what's happening in Guinea-Bissau?
Yeah, and I start off with what our brother and comrade Jared just said, that the enemy of the people, the enemy of our revolution, will always try to make it seem as though the sacrifices of comrades like Kwame Ture, who was not a leader but an organizer, a comrade who loved for our people, try to make it seem like he was diminished. Like that. That's why we want to praise this this formation of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party for concentrating on the role that Kwame Ture played in the last 30 years. It was like not to diminish the years working with the SNCC or the Black Panther Party or with NAG, but to show that he has such a serious impact, and the enemy doesn't want us to copy that. Because you have a simple brother, and like our younger sister just said a little while ago, he showed us that you too can make a very significant contribution, internal contribution to our struggle. So it's only normal and only logical that the enemy will say that the last years of his life had diminished in influence. It was on the contrary. He had more of an impact in the last year of his physical existence, and he's having more and more every year as time goes on. And we're witness to it here in the homeland of Amilcar Cabral by saying that the African Party of Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde is influenced by the works of Kwame Ture, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, and the others that contributed. We see it with the youth of the Amilcar Cabral African youth. We see it with the youth, the different pan-African. We see that our youth are hungry for ideological, political training. And this is what our enemy doesn't want to see. So we really want to thank the Black Power media for providing this outlet to go against the stream of the imperialist media that tries to hide us. They say that when the chairman of the NBC was retiring, I think his name was Fred Silversmith, he said the main thing I regret in my years of work with NBC was putting Kwame Ture, he said Stokely Carmen, putting Kwame Ture on the evening news. Because that time they wanted to do it because they wanted to get a lot of ads or attract a lot of attention, but it worked against them.
That's funny you said that, because people sometimes forget or were encouraged to not remember that Brian Lamb, the founder of C-SPAN, said that he set up C-SPAN specifically to combat that very ethic, because he said he saw Kwame cut short. He had been to a speech live, saw the whole thing, turned on the evening news that night and saw the condensed, truncated, distorted version and said, man, we need a situation where we can hear the entire thing laid out. So he actually, and he told Ture to his face during one of his last interviews there that C-SPAN was an inspiration of Kwame Ture specifically to combat the point you just made, Brother Imani. So yeah, that's perfect.
So as our comrades view the rest of these interviews and presentations that you comrades have so well organized with your sacrifice and love, we want to make sure that everybody studies them, not to praise just the individual Kwame Ture, that the best birthday gift you could give to Kwame Ture on his 80th anniversary, his 100th anniversary, his 1000th anniversary is to continue their work. And as Comrade Obi Jr. said a little while ago, do even more, do even better than he did. Because our people still are not free, and we're humble servants of our people. So we have to organize our people like never before.
Right on. Sister Chavaduka, did you want to respond or add?
No,
or
let's
should we
move on to the next.
Okay.
Let's go to the next segment.
Sure. Here we go. Let's pulling that up.
Let's
just
go
now.
with it.
There we go.
We who are dedicated to building the All-African People's Revolutionary Party enthusiastically commemorate the 80th anniversary of the birth of our eternal brother and comrade, Kwame Ture. Most historical references of Kwame Ture are fundamentally revisionist and exclude the contributions he made to revolutionary pan-Africanism and worldwide socialism. Our modest presentation today is a work in progress. It's an attempt to contribute to the historical record of Kwame Ture's vast work post-1966. We'll continue to develop it with collective contributions from you, and we have faith that we'll recuperate more historical archives. He was born with the name Stokely Carmichael, son of Mabel, May Charles, and Adolphus Carmichael, in Port of Spain, Trinidad. The family moved to New York when Kwame was 11 years old. Kwame attended the Bronx High School of Science, where he excelled academically and also got early exposure to radical politics. Kwame Ture attended Howard University, where he became very active, working with the Nonviolent Action Group. He turned into a fish in water among our people while organizing with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. He further honed his organizing skills in his work with the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, the first Black Panther Party, and later as honorary Prime Minister of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. In 1967, Kwame Ture participated in a conference of Latin American revolutionaries in Cuba. This was his first major dive into international political coordination against imperialism. He held meetings with Commander Fidel Castro, Cuban and Latin American revolutionaries. Fidel announced to the participants from the revolutionary groups representing most of Latin America and the Caribbean that they must protect Kwame Ture. During a visit to Cuba years later, Kwame thanked the Cuban people and Fidel Castro.
Our first presenter is Brother Kwame Ture, who is known to many of you. He has been a fighter in the struggle for over 25 years as an African liberation revolutionary. So we'll ask Brother Kwame Ture.
We want to greet everyone, and certainly we, on behalf of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, would like to thank the House of the Americas and the Center for Studies of the Americas for giving us the honor of being invited here today. Of course, the biggest crime a human being can commit is the crime of being ungrateful. And it certainly would be criminal of me were I not to take this time out to thank the Cuban people and to thank the incarnation of Cuba, Fidel Castro. In 1967, when I visited Cuba, it was at a point of my lowest political strength. Fidel Castro, before the OLAS conference, which contained revolutionaries throughout the world, instructed them that it was their responsibilities to protect me, and that when I returned to the United States, they should keep in contact with me, and that they should follow me, and that if in fact America had touched one grain of my hair, then there should be retaliations against American imperialism from everywhere. Certainly it was simply a slight act, I am sure, in one of the many that Fidel Castro has performed for the Cuban Revolution. But I am certain that since at that time imperialism was trying to kill me, as it is still trying, since I am determined to kill it, I am sure that the reason why I'm here today is because of this act of Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution. They were able to save my life, and I promised the Cuban Revolution and all Cuban revolutionaries that I shall never be ungrateful for this act, that as long as there's breath in my body, I shall intensify my fight against imperialism without pity and without mercy.
Car Michael trouve refuge à Alger en 1968. Il est devenu un ennemi de son pays.
And it is important that we begin now to visit African countries so that when the United States invades Africa, as she will have to in the coming years, we will have developed a revolutionary consciousness among African Americans that they will not fight.
Revolutionary Cubans helped him prepare travels to revolutionary countries. Kwame visited Vietnam, which was in the midst of a very intense armed struggle for national liberation, and met with Ho Chi Minh. He went to Egypt, where he met Sister Comrade Shirley Graham Du Bois, and Algeria, which served as a base for many revolutionary organizations involved in armed struggle. While in Algeria, meeting with representatives of the National Liberation Front of Algeria, the FLN, and other liberation movements based there, he received a telegram from Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah inviting him to the 8th Congress of the Democratic Party of Guinea of the Democratic African Revolution, the PDGRDA. In Conakry, Shirley Graham Du Bois introduced him to Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. During their meetings, Osagyefo gave him a manuscript of the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which calls for political military coordination of the African Revolution, including the construction of an all-African People's Revolutionary Party. Kwame spent all night reading it, and at the breakfast meeting the next morning, he pledged to Osagyefo that he would dedicate his life to construct the All-African People's Revolutionary Party and would use contacts he had to contribute to this cause. Osagyefo invited Kwame to reside in Conakry and serve as his political secretary. Kwame accepted. Kwame also met Sister Miriam Makeba in Conakry, and they eventually married. Kwame asked Osajifo to first allow him to visit Tanzania, given that he had already made some contact with the liberation movements based there. Afterwards, he would visit the U.S. to get some of his items and then return to Guinea. He did as agreed, but when he arrived in New York, his passport was seized by the U.S. authorities. He spent most of 1968 struggling to get it back. During that 1 year, he was accused of inciting riots in various cities in the U.S. This is, of course, the year that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and all hell broke loose as Africans burned cities. When his passport was finally returned in 1969, Kwame Ture and Miriam Makeba moved to the Revolutionary Republic of Guinea. The PDG, led by Ahmed Sekou Touré, furnished them with Guinean citizenship and a house in Labe, in the interior of Guinea. He studied directly under Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah and was introduced to many revolutionaries, parties, and movements that had their base there in Guinea. He made contact with many revolutionary visitors. He met with diplomatic representatives of revolutionary countries that had their embassies in Conakry. As a result of the revolutionary milieu in the society and constant contact with mature revolutionaries, the comrade brother, who we knew as Stokely Carmichael, transformed into brother and comrade Kwame Ture, an honest, courageous, dedicated revolutionary pan-Africanist organizer. His main focus was on recruiting conscious Africans to give their creativity and energies to establish and construct an all-African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP. At least once every year, he would carry out recruitment drives on hundreds of college campuses in the U.S. and the Virgin Islands. In 1971, he released Stokely Speaks, From Black Power to Pan-Africanism, a collection of his speeches, essays, and articles. The book's editor was Sister Ethel Minor, a SNCC comrade and its communications director. He made a number of working visits to the Libyan Jamahiriya, where the Mataba served as a worldwide training center for revolutionary organizations. He would use it to link up the American Indian Movement, the International Indian Treaty Council, representatives of liberation movements in Africa, organizations of Africans in various parts of the diaspora, with the strategy of establishing political formations such as the Worldwide Anti-Zionist Front and the African Anti-Zionist Front. He met with African organizations in the U.S., encouraging the formation of a Black United Front. Utilizing his contacts and credibility, he assisted in the formation of the nucleus of an African United Front in the U.S., which he described as being inclusive of all organizations working for Africans in the U.S., from the reformist to the revolutionary, regardless of their ideology, as long as they worked for the progress of Africans in the U.S. He assisted in the formation of a nucleus of an African nationalist front. Imperialism considered the AAPRP, along with the American Indian Movement, AIM, to be their greatest threats. They initiated a number of strategies, including infiltrators, misinformation, and a coordinated ban against Kwame Ture. He was banned from entering into 32 countries. He couldn't even visit the country that he was born in, Trinidad and Tobago. When he visited Trinidad for the first time in 30 years, a number of organizations emerged. Everywhere he visited, organizations were established. In Guinea, Kwame Ture received a number of AAPRP delegations from the African diaspora. Each participated in political organizing with the PDG. the PDG Youth Wing, JRDA, and its Women's Wing, the Revolutionary Union of Guinean Women. Historical untruths have been propagated about Kwame's views on African women's role in the struggle, but his record of work with and on behalf of women speaks for itself. Kwame Ture and comrades from the PDG visited the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau. According to the PDG-RDA leaders, it was thanks to the interventions of the AAPRP that the PDG was able to get strategic documents signed by the PAIGC. Kwame, along with AAWRU, that's the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union, and coordinator, Sister Comrade Mawina Kuyate, went to various villages, villas, and towns accompanied by freedom fighters and the Amilcar Cabral African Youth, JAC. The African Liberation Day rally was held in Bairro Militar, the largest neighborhood of Bissau City, with representatives of the AAPRP, PDGRDA, and PAIGC, with a salute by the Abel Jassy Pioneers Organization. The Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, PANAFU, gives credit to the work of Kwame Ture and the AAPRP for their establishment and development in the 1990s. According to brother and comrade Kwame Ture, the CIA gave him cancer. Although discovered in 1996, he continued to organize. Quote, "I ain't gonna die in no bed. I dies with my boots on in the battlefield." He continued to travel to Cuba, Belize, Senegal, the U.S. He focused on developing the organizations that he contributed to forming. Kwame was once again the beneficiary of revolutionary Cuban love as he underwent treatment in Cuba. Severely ill with cancer in January 1997, Kwame Ture continued to work at a high level. He conceived and organized a meeting of AAPRP cadre organizing in Africa at the PDG National Headquarters in Conakry. Documents from this historic meeting are still being studied and serve as ideological references and a political guide. So great was his desire to see the formation of an African United Front that from his wheelchair, he led a sit-in at the NAACP National Headquarters to force its chairman, Julian Bond, former comrade in SNCC, to meet with representatives of the Nation of Islam, the Urban League, and other organizations of Africans in the U.S. He continued to participate in recruitment drives, an AAPRP party-wide recruitment seminar in Ohio, and a meeting of the AAPRP Central Committee in November of '97. In September of '98, along with AAPRP cadre, Kwame Ture visited structures of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania and the Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO. During the last months of his physical life, Kwame Ture remained in a cadre circle, collectively studying and meeting until his final days. Thanks to the birth of brother and comrade Kwame Ture on the 29th of June 1941 and his subsequent faithfulness to the aspirations of our suffering people, and the small formation of comrades dedicated to constructing the AAPRP, there are comrades now organizing in Kenya, Tanzania, Azania, South Africa, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, England, Canada, France, Germany, the U.S., and Brazil. Moreover, the cultural, ideological, and political milieu that he contributed to will result in the youth organizing like wildfire on to one unified socialist Africa. Kwame often stated that we must prepare for our final exit. We must work like we will live eternally, because the struggle is eternal. He organized by example, and his example continues to organize, ready for the revolution.
Welcome back, everybody. We are joined by Nahanda. And I'm going others, if at all possible, please grab some headphones. Otherwise, let me just mute you until you speak so we don't get the echo. But greetings, Sister Nahanda and Sister Chavanduka. Did you want to introduce our latest guest and or lead any transition, or Sister Nahanda introduce herself? Greetings. Anyway.
Well, just that we're really, really happy to have our comrade Sister Nahanda here with us. She comes with so much experience in many different areas, but especially in organizing for the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and a model for us women, us sisters who are going to be on the front line. As I said before, you heard her earlier in the video where she spoke about her time as the coordinator for Kwame Ture's recruitment drive. And we want to just hear some more from her, some more of her reflections about working with Kwame Ture and the AAPRP.
Thank you, Sister Chavanduka, Brother Jared, and Brother Imani. It's so good to see everyone this morning. I sincerely apologize for being late. The time change is just not my thing, but sorry about that. What I heard from the presentation, is just such an honor to be here and to honor our brother, dear brother Kwame Ture's life and his legacy. It's such an honor. And as some of you know, I've been with the AAPRP, All African People's Revolutionary Party, for about 40 years now. And I can still remember the first time I met Kwame Ture. I was just so nervous because we were bringing him to San Jose State University here in California. And the student union ballroom was packed to capacity. It was like 1,000 students in there. And this just tall giant just walked in and just swished by. And only thing I can remember, I don't know what to say to this brother. He was just, just walking history. And, you know, I hadn't been in the party maybe a year or so. And it was just so amazing to hear him. Every time we heard him speak, you learned something new. And so in 1982, when I started coordinating his recruitment drive, we called it the KTRD, the Kwame Ture Recruitment Drive. For about 6 years, from 82 to about 88. And we brought him all over the world, the Caribbean, Canada, England, all over the US. And so for me, it was just amazing how humble this brother was, because we took him through some conditions. We would fly him back and forth across the East Coast, small cars, you know, who knows what kind of accommodations. This brother was over 6 feet tall, you know, so he was always, you know, sitting in economy class, and he never, ever, ever complained. And so for me, you know, listening to his political legacy, you know, I knew him really as a human being, as a brother. And I remember he would talk about his mother and father's influence on him. And when he first moved to the US when they first moved from Trinidad, and he said that his father taught him honesty, that his father was aggressively honest. And if you knew Kwame, you know he was an honest brother. He always told us the truth. And he said from his mother, who he was very, very, very close to, some of us met May Charles Carmichael, that she gave him her fighting instinct, that she, from the conditions she suffered and from the insults that she suffered as a woman, as an African woman, that she refused to take these insults and the oppression. And in fact, some of that was the reason why she left Trinidad, and then the father came after. But anyway, it was from his mother that he got his fighting instincts. And we know Kwame was a fighter. And like you said in the beautiful presentation, Sister Chabanduka, until his last breath, you know, soldier, boots on the ground, fighting for his people. And then just one other reflection about him as a human being. He talked about when he was growing up in Trinidad, how much they would love the full moon and they would just go out and play, go outside. And he remembered moving to the US to this concrete jungle. And he was like, where's the moon? You know, so these are the things that we don't often talk about when we talk about Kwame Ture. And so I like to bring his humanity into the space. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Right on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Imara. Definitely. I'm ready, Imani. Anything else from you?
No, just to say we could keep on moving on, because as our comrade and sister Nehanda said, that Kwame Ture gave us the example of a humble, honest human being who had overwhelming love for our people. I just wish that all of you all who are here could have an opportunity to walk down the streets with Kwame. Neither in Africa or in the diaspora, to see the love he has with our people. I've had the opportunity to have Comrade Kwame give you his personal advice, or give you personal advice, or give you that listening ear, or give you the political strategies or the tactics, and to help you with your criticisms, to make sure that you're a factor of unity. I wish that our comrades would have the opportunity. I'm sure that little by little, the archives will come out since we have more advanced technology of the different meetings that Kwame's been in. Because as Comrade Nehanda mentioned, sometimes he'd be on a plane 5 times a day. But no matter where he goes, he still have time to, after the recruitment drive presentations, to sit down with his comrades, not only the All-African People Revolutionary Party, but as well with the organization struggling to bring a united African United Front. And to mention that we have comrades who are participating today from one of the African United Fronts called the Black Alliance for Peace. That not only continue to work for African United Front, but it's also continue to work to help with coordination in Africa and with programs to get the U.S. imperialists out of Africa, especially AFRICOM. And these continuations are some of the things that Kwame did that you just pointed out in the presentation for the rest of his life. And that their comrades are still continuing the work that Comrade Kwame Ture did in trying to follow that strategy of Assaji for Kwame Nkrumah, to bring together the most revolutionary parties and organizations of Africa and our diaspora to form an all-African committee for political coordination, to make sure that we coordinate, to make sure we build that mass revolutionary, all-African People Revolutionary Party of the millions of Africans that live in Africa and the diaspora. But we can continue with the presentations.
Right.
Well, one thing though, before we move forward, Sister Nehanda. Imani, Comrade Imani, can you mute?
Yeah, sorry about that. I got it. There you go. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's okay. There's a burning question happening in some quarters of the AAPRP about whether Kwame Ture actually met Thomas Sankara when he came to New York. And you were there, right? I think, was it City College? Were you there, Comrade Imani?
I was not there.
Imani,
Okay,
you muted.
okay.
Hold on. Go ahead.
No, it was Comrade Mawina who was there, and Comrade Morime. And that's when Thomas Sankara Thomas Sankara said that when we come to the United States, we have to come to Harlem, the capital of the Africans in the United States. He pulled out his pistol and said, this is how we fight against imperialism in Africa. But Kwame Ture wasn't physically there, but he helped to organize it.
Okay.
Right on.
Okay. We've been looking for photographs of them together and couldn't find any. So we wondered if that meeting had actually ever taken place in New York. But thank you for that.
whether that meeting happened or not, the legacy of Kwame Ture and Thomas Sankara still lives with the party. We have a young sister who just moved to Burkina Faso, who is in the party, and just Thomas Sankara lives, Kwame Ture lives, and all the work that Thomas Sankara did, and we know that, you know, how the enemy assassinated him, but that his legacy continues to live, just like Kwame Ture's legacy of Pan-Africanism continues to live. I visited Burkina Faso in 89, and can't speak a lick of French, but I was in the market and I was like, la même, you know, my skin is like yours. And the brother understood me and he said, yes, Marcus Garvey. And he could not speak English. I couldn't speak French, but it just shows you the power of African unity and Pan-Africanism, even if we don't have all of the political definitions and the, you know, the organizing, that it's in the spirit of our people. And that was so visible and so activated in the life and the legacy of Kwame Ture, you know, as Brother Imani said, and as you said in your presentation, Sister Chabanduka, you know, everybody he touched, it was with that light of Pan-Africanism.
If I can, I just maybe humbly put out into the world that maybe there would be an artist who might construct for us what the meeting between Sankara and Ture would have looked like. And as they say, I got 5 on it. So just put that out there, maybe, you know. Anyway, if you all are all set, I'll happily pull up the next clip. And we can check that out, and then endeavor to bring you all back for some more after. But let's check this out here.
That great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Is it? Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism? Yes. If one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case. Quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it. Clearly here. Yes. The legal foundation of the State of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British. Just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews, and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. The Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string and ham to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus, they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism. But Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Thus, Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all. And one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact.
Haiti is a very, 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 very important island in the Pan-African struggle. Haiti brings pride to Africans who know history. In 1803, Haiti was the most democratic country in the world. It was the only country in the world that did not allow slavery on its borders. The only country in the world in 1803. Once you properly understand this history, because you know these capitalist pigs have such a way of making it appear as if we've never done anything as Africans. We don't know democracy. We don't know democracy. In 1803, Africans gave the freest world, the freest nation to the entire world. The only country in the world that did not allow slavery was Haiti. And not only did not allow it, but the only country in the world that put its natural resources towards fighting against any oppression was Haiti. Simon Bolivar, who liberated South America, anyone who knows the history knows it was Haiti that gave him the money, outfitted him with ships to start the struggle. And the Haitians demanded only one thing of Bolivar: when you free Venezuela, when you free Colombia, when you free Argentina, when you free Peru, free the slaves. The only condition of which they required of Simon Bolivar. This is history. You can't hide the truth, and if you know your history, you look for history, you will find it. You can imagine the threat that that Haiti imposed upon America since 1803. There was nothing that American imperialism, one other thing I must tell you, from this period, 1803, Haiti fought every major European power, the Americans, the French, the Spanish, the Germans, the Portuguese, all of them, trying to bring Haiti down, and not one of them could make Haiti renege on her democratic principles. On that country, there would never be on that territory a slave. Every man, every woman was free. You just make it to Haiti and you're free, no slavery. Everywhere else there was slavery, everywhere else. In the great America, they were, let's not talk about that. So anyway, you could imagine the threat that Haiti posed. American imperialism, all of its life, had only one objective: to bring those slaves back onto the plantation. There was only one objective: bring those slaves back to the plantation. And America, France, all of them could not bring Haiti back to the plantation. Even after slavery was made illegal throughout the Western Hemisphere and was even abandoned and emancipation proclamations were read everywhere, Haiti continued to be the guiding inspiration for Africans throughout the Western Hemisphere. It was not until 1915 that American imperialism could put the heels of the Marines on Haiti, install Papa Doc, a scum of our race, one who would bow down to the wishes of imperialism and rape his people without the slightest mercy. And since then, that's where Haiti has been, and that's where it is to this day. And it's certainly not Bill Clinton who's going to liberate it, just the masses of Africans.
I don't remember exactly when I met Kwame the first time. I think that I knew him for the news here in Cuba, because he visited Cuba. I don't know if it was in the 70s or first time, but I saw an image of this interesting black men that said, "We are beautiful." What is he talking about? In that moment, honestly, I didn't know that will create an important repercussion in my life. But I never heard somebody that said something like this. With the time, with my trip to the United States, I met Kwame Ture, I met Stokely, tall, beautiful, handsome, with the smile. And the best memory that I have is that in one occasion I have a presentation of Eyes of the Rainbow, the film that I made on Asaka Shakur, and I want that he presented the film. It was in New York in one university, but I need to get in touch with him at home, in the house, and I called him at home, and every time that I called him, he didn't say good morning, good afternoon, good night. Ready for the revolution! And you're supposed to say ready. And during all the rest of my life, I continue with the same. Always I am ready for the revolution, because it's also a way to express that we haven't finished, that we need to get another, and get the strength. That's the meaning of this work for me. It's not that we are going to make a physically, a theoretically revolution, but inside your daily life, you need to make your own revolution, to step by step, in order to get progress. Because later when I knew him, even when he was sick and he stayed here in Cuba and I went to the hospital, he always smiled. He always was happy, because he knew that we need to continue making this revolution, especially for our people. If he was in Cuba in those days, in the 70s, the 80s, I don't know, and he came here, it's because Cuba represented something very important for him. Cuba represented hope, respect. He knew that it was not a perfect world, but he knew that something different happened to many black people. And I think that when you realize about the meaning of ready for the revolution, is that you understand that he was trying to support a system that represents respect to the human.
I was in many demonstration protests that Kwame Ture was in, and that I know in Mississippi early on, in Southwest Georgia, Americus, Georgia, Albany, Georgia, right here in Atlanta, in DC, in Maryland, Cambridge, Maryland, where we were demonstrating probably 62. So in many different places I met Kwame Ture, but me and him became partners probably in 1960, somewhere around 65. We really became inseparable and started hanging out together and doing everything together and organizing in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and by 1966 we were just traveling all over the country and building the Black Power movement and encouraging people to burn down America, the rebellions, becoming the spokesman for them, help organize them and encourage our people to fight and struggle, and wherever they set this country on fire, we encouraged it. So Kwame kept moving beyond the civil rights and moved into Pan-African movement, and when he moved into the Pan-Africanist movement, he became an advocate of Africa and an advocate of the liberation of Africa, every acre, every territory of Africa, and the liberation of the oppressed people around the world. So Kwame Ture kept growing while other people stopped at civil rights and what have you. Kwame kept growing and grew all the way into a great Pan-Africanist and a great soldier for Africa. And he probably gave his whole life for the liberation and unification of Africa, and that was his total belief. We organized a revolutionary organization, and one of the objectives of the organization was to join in with all the armed revolutionaries in the world, in Africa, around Africa and around the Caribbean, wherever African people was, and put together a strong revolutionary movement that could help us defeat imperialism in Africa and wherever it was in the world. And also, Kwame Ture, as he traveled around the world and he expanded very good. Early on we joined in with the Palestinians, and our movement became a sister organization to the PLO at that time and the Palestinian struggle. And we did everything to educate our people about the crimes that Zionism was committing against the Palestinians and imperialism itself. And we joined in with all other revolutionary governments from Iraq to Libya to Syria, to the Irish Republican Army, to all the liberation movements in Africa. And anywhere we saw revolutionary or revolution, our party became a brother or sisters to it. So Kwame helped internationalize and Africanize our movement. Well, Kwame Ture was an example of many people, many struggles, and he just tried to do what Marcus Garvey did, and did his best to do what Marcus Garvey did, organize African people worldwide. He tried to carry the philosophy of Kwame Nkrumah, who wanted to organize the United States of Africa, and he and Stokely wanted to organize the United Socialist Africa. And he tried to, work and do what Lumumba and probably all the revolutionaries that he ever heard of and seen, Mao Zedong, is to work and liberate Africa from imperialism and to unite Africa and use Africa as a nation that could feed, clothe, and solve all the socio-economic problems of African people worldwide. He showed appreciation for the most simplest people, the most very simple, for whether they were drunk or drinking or just a common person or a silly person or whatever. He could find the intelligence and the good and the philosophy of that person, and he could debate a person and still love that person, never have hostility toward nobody's ideals, but he could discuss the ideals and all that, and he always ended up loving and making friends with some of the people that showed the greatest hostility to him. And he just was always an example of somebody that always loved his people and had great respect for his people, and he never compromised it, and he always wanted the best for our people, and he felt that the only best and the real best for our people was a total liberation and unification of Africa under socialism, scientific socialism, and he felt that we can only get there through revolution. And revolution, not just in thoughts and philosophy and whatever. He was ready for armed struggle. He was ready for any kind of struggle, any kind of movement to liberate and unite Africa. So he was a brother that was totally committed to Africa, and I think that all our people have to become totally committed and have true love for our people and true love for just the common people, and realize that any problem that we have, it comes from imperialism, it comes from slavery, it comes from the rape of Africa, and that it don't care what contradiction people have, it's all part of what we have gone through, and the system created these bad conditions for our people. And Kwame Ture always liked to say, cure the sickness and save the patient. And that was his attitude. Cure the sickness and save the patient. He was never angry at the patient. He was always angry at the sickness. So that's the Kwame Ture I know. We hit him and we fought many, many battles together, and we fought as one. Kwame is Mukasa and Mukasa is Kwame.
When I started the party, I knew very little about Zionism. I had never really studied or heard the term Zionism. But and Kwame was such an expert on Zionism. When he read a book, he said he read a book every month on the question of Zionism. The whole question of Kwame's demeanor, Kwame's ability to make other people understand and demystify a process, that moving from step one to step two, to growing as an organizer, meant that you really had to be committed to doing work. doing the work. Kwame understood that he knew about Zionism not because of some aspect of osmosis, but he did do that reading every month. He did get that book, and that I could do that too. I could learn the information. I could understand. He put his emphasis on political education, organizational discipline, that being organized, we can all grow and develop. Kwame understood that he prepared us, because even though I was sad as I started this, when Kwame transitioned, I wasn't afraid, because he had prepared us to understand that transition was, too soon, of course, in the case of Kwame, but it certainly was going to happen.
So I joined the party in 1997, and Kwame Ture made his transition in 1998. So my relationship with him is not really like as a comrade. One, because I was so new, but then two, because he wasn't really doing a lot of touring around that time period. I think I joined in August like 97, and then he passed like what was it? November 98, exactly. So, I was able to actually see, the last time I saw him speak was actually at this conference in, San Francisco State, the African Black Student Statewide Alliance Conference. And he actually spoke alongside Khalid Muhammad. And they were like the keynote speakers. And so what I thought what really stood out to me is like, this was in I think it was in 1997, right? So this was, ultimately close to a year before he passed away, and he was like as energetic as ever. You really couldn't even tell that he had cancer. You couldn't tell that he was sick. He was really, pushing the line of pan-Africanism. So that really inspired me. I think when I think back to like Kwame Ture and like his contributions to the APRP and pan-Africanism, like I can't acknowledge my own successes or the successes of other comrades without recognizing sort of the hard work that Kwame Ture put in to building the APRP, to building, pushing the Pan-African movement, to really kind of like pushing us beyond our, praxis, whatever that praxis happened to be. I think that's also significant. And then when I think of like, these great Pan-African leaders, like, you definitely think of Patrice Lumumba, you definitely think of, Thomas Sankara, you definitely think of Kwame Nkrumah, and absolutely 100% Kwame Ture's name comes up. And it's interesting because with all of the new books that are coming out, like some of my classes, like the Intro to African Studies or African American Studies, like I'll always give people like individuals that they can write about. And many students now are picking up and writing about Kwame Ture and about the impact that he's done, not just in the Black Power movement, but with the APRP and with, his role in Guinea. And so it's like, not only did he impact like my generation, did he impact the generation before that, but he's also like impacting further generations, which I think is significant, because when you read sort of the works that the papers that are written about him, from a student's perspective, a 21, 22, 23-year-old student, maybe a 30-year-old student, you see that even, in his death, he's still this great Pan-African leader. So I think for me, what's most significant about Kwame Ture is not necessarily during his lifetime, but if you look at the legacy of work that he's done over sort of the tenure of his life, and even the impact that he's making post sort of his death, I think that in itself is we'll find like in 10 or 20 or 30 years that you'll have, Kwame Ture will be like an Nkrumah, right? Where you will have people quoting Kwame Ture, specifically with YouTube and all these other places. You can go back and listen to his lectures and just find all the nuances in the ideology from his perspective or from his worldviews.
Kwame Ture, in one sense, influences me a lot, in a sense that he's somebody who is able to break down the struggle for us. He makes it very simple. And also somebody who is very resilient and determined with Pan-Africanism. You watch his last interview, and this was somebody who knew he was about to almost die, or somebody who knew he was going to die. Yet you find him with all smiles, and because he knew what he was in for, and he could also see the future of Pan-Africanism, and that definitely we are going to win. So he really somebody who influences me a lot.
Comrades, we greet you from the office of the Milkakabra African Youth, JAC, the youth wing of the African Party of Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, PIGC, in the homeland of Emile Kakabra. And we can say very happy birthday to our comrade, brother Kwame Ture, formerly known as Dr. Kwame. We're still in the office that he came in 1993. And it's because of his influence that we're still organizing in the homeland of Amilcar Cabral with the Pan-Africanist Revolutionary Party, PIGC. In this very short reflection on Kwame Ture, one of the first words that comes to our mind is honesty. The second word that comes to our mind is courage. The third word that comes to our mind is harmony with the masses of our people. Our brother and comrade Kwame Ture taught us to always work for our people honestly, and our people will take care of us. And I bear witness that Comrade Kwame Ture was courageous and in harmony with our people. And I've had the opportunity to be with him not only here in Guinea-Bissau, but again in Conakry, various parts, Conakry, Farina, Pasandu, Mamu, Koya, Kindia, on various occasions. I had the opportunity to be with him in various parts of the diaspora, including Atlanta, DC, New York, St. Louis, Chicago, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Iowa, and other parts. The last time that we had the opportunity to be physically with Comrade Kwame Ture before he made his physical transition was in Dakar, a few months before he did. And the reason why we've been in Dakar, because there was a civil war going on in Guinea-Bissau, and when it began in June, Comrade Kwame Ture was infected with cancer. But yet and still, him and the immortal Comrade Mwene Tuyati had contact with us via telephone and said that every 24 hours they wanted to hear from us. A month later, Comrade Kwame with his sister Najib, who's also on to join the ancestors, met up with us in Dakar to discuss face-to-face the struggle going on here in Guinea-Bissau. Kwame also taught us to organize by example. And comrades, we bear witness that Kwame Ture's example is still organizing. More than 20 years after he left us physically, he's still with us and will be with us. It also taught us to prepare to live an eternal life, to prepare for our final exit physically, but to prepare to live forever. And comrades, we bear witness to them. He gave us a great example of a comrade we had opportunity in his house several times where he lived in Corporal Beach or in Cape 2 times in Ratoma. That he would wake up early in the morning, get his news, and begin to study. So through him, we were able to have our contacts with Comrade Kwame Nkrumah, Sajifo, Comrade Ahmed Sekou, because Comrade Kwame Ture had the opportunity to be with them physically. We had the opportunity to be with Comrade Ture physically. And so bearing witness, being in this house, being able to go to every nook and cranny of this house, he had nothing to hide. We never heard anybody say that Kwame was a liar or Kwame told a lie. His mother gave witness that, Comrade May Charles, our mother, Mamu, that she always taught them, no matter what you do, don't lie, be honest about it. And we can say that Kwame gave us an example of that. So we want to follow the example of Comrade Kwame Ture in this very short reflection on him. Of course, we have many more years of eternity, and we know that as time goes on, the example of Kwame Ture becomes larger and larger, and will organize and will reproduce itself as these comrade sisters who were here in the office of the Amilcar Cabral African Youth, and the more than 2,600 bases of JOC that our Congress help us to organize in the memory of Kwame Ture. So comrades, ready for the revolution. Long live building the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Bring together the most revolutionary progressive parties of Africa in collaboration and coordination with the anti-imperialist parties of all the world. Asia, Africa, Latin America, each side of the metropoles, and Australia. Thank you, ready for revolution.
Some people may think it's a little strange, but Kwame Ture was a member of the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union, the AAWRU. The AAWRU is the women's organization within the AAPRP. Like the organizations that we held up as examples, the PDG in Guinea and PAC in South Africa, Zambia, CPP, they had women's organizations as part of the organization itself. They were not separate organizations, but the women only belonged to them. Within the AAWRU, the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union, we formed that in 1980. We had our forming meeting in Columbus, Ohio, after a series of study and readings and meetings and over 2 or 3 years, and we finally started the organization. All the women who joined the AAPRP were automatically members of. In most of the chapters, particularly the Illinois chapter, all of the men also were required to attend our meetings and learn, so they could learn the women are a critical part of the African Revolution, and there would be no revolution without the full participation of women. So the men have to learn to do chores, women have to take on major responsibilities, and so on. Kwame Ture was one of the main people pushing for us to form the AEWRU. So he's always been supportive of it. He's always supported what we've chosen to do. And so at some point, they made him an honorary member of the AEWRU. So one of the things I learned in studying some of the history is his work with women, beginning with Ella Baker and with Gloria Richardson and a number of other women who had major roles back during the civil rights time and the youth movement of the 60s. And in SNCC, even some of the women who were field representatives and all, he had to take direction from them. So to say that he did not know have a proper relationship with women is just not to know full of history.
We are very happy to meet with the people on the television series today, and we are extremely honored that the title Man of the People has been given to us. We promise you that we will, as long as we live, try to personify this. We will always try to be a man of the people by representing always a just struggle, by never compromising any of our principles with justice, but just like the people, willing at the drop of a hand to give our life to advance the cause of justice. When you say man of the people, this indeed is a great, great, great weight being placed on your shoulder. We want to know exactly what we mean by the term the people, because everybody is always doing something for the people. So we want to know exactly what is the people. Of course, we know from the word people, and when we say the people, we mean all the people. But now when we say the people, we don't mean all the people. In Western democracies, where they try to confuse people with form, not with content, they will have you believe that the majority is the people. Of course, the majority is a simple form of vote. A great man, a noble son of Africa, Kwame Ture, said, if I'm walking down the street and there are 15 thieves on the corner, and these 15 thieves have decided what to do with me, and there are two proposals. One says they should steal me and beat me, the other one said they should steal me and kill me. And they have a vote, and 13 vote to steal me and to kill me. Is this a democratic vote? No. So when we speak about the people, we're not just speaking about the majority and those who vote. We're not speaking about form, we're speaking about essence. Essence.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy, cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing? Oh, another song of freedom. Yes, yeah. 'Cause all I ever had, did you know? Redemption songs, sing the harmony. Redemption songs, sing on with me, children. In every way now, in every day, in every way now, in every way.
All right, welcome back, everybody, as we continue this special 80th birthday tribute to Kwame Ture with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And welcoming back our guests. Who would like to, Sister Shamanduka, did you want to pick up with any transition thoughts?
Yeah. Just briefly. Well, first, that piece that we just watched, that was from a television show that was produced, I believe, in Trinidad. And somebody here may know more about that than me, but I found it on YouTube by a brother named Yao Ramosar, I believe. And he was, so I think that was done in Trinidad, but I'm not absolutely sure. And my research didn't lead me to find out. But I just enjoy seeing Kwame in that relaxed atmosphere by the water. And of course, whenever he was with the people, he would dance. And so that's one of my favorite memories about him. I just wanted you to indulge me for just a minute. I wanted to just read a reflection by one of our sister comrades, longtime AAPRP master organizer, Sister Masani. She says that Kwame Ture embodied the revolutionary thought and principle of in front of the people, with the people, and behind the people. His actions showed that he was fearless in representing the people's aspirations, always asking revolutionary thought to analyze and to analyze our condition and take it to the enemy at any stage and on any stage, the civil rights stage, the Black Power stage, and finally the Pan-African stage. While he represented us, he also remained with us at all times, from the humblest recruitment drive to the most famous ones. He never changed. He always remained with the people, respecting and appreciating all the work that the masses were doing, to the point that he would roll up his sleeves and take his role with the masses. Then after all was said and done, the compliments were for the masses, not for himself, but for the masses. As a revolutionary, he took no praise. He gave all the praises to the masses because he saw that in every aspect, the masses are the makers of history. The masses will rise. The masses will bring change. And out of confusion, clarity will come from the masses. And with the masses, he was a servant of the masses, ready. And I just wanted to, everything that we've heard so far, it confirms that he was with the people. He liked to eat with the people. He liked to dance with the people. And more than anything, he liked to make revolution with the people. So long live Kwame Ture.
Before we hear from Sister Nahanda or Brother Imani again, I'm wondering if anybody, I think you already answered, or even that comment already or statement answers this question, but I'm wondering if anyone could speak to, whenever we would hear him speak, even just in that last clip, he would self-refer as we and never use the word I. I'm wondering if anyone could actually elaborate a little bit on that clearly conscious decision.
I would say, and I know Imani has something to say. I could see it on his forehead. But as our Native American brothers and sisters said, the brothers are the jawbone, the sisters are the backbone. So let's go first. I think that was, again, his humility, his fierce honesty, and his intense love for the people. And so it was never about I. It was never individualism. It was always we. It was always putting himself. Even that statement that Sister Chabanduka read from Sister Imani, he always saw himself alongside and behind the masses. I mean, I can just vividly, when you said that, see, whenever there was food at a program, he would get in line last. I mean, so he always saw himself as never being defined outside of the people. There was no him without the people. And so I think that that was just his lens and everything he said and everything he did and how he lived. But what I wanted to reflect on, and I know Imani will say some more about that, but when the first clip came on, when he was talking about Zionism and socialism, and then there was a clip about Haiti and the importance of studying our history, I just wanted to add that, and what Brother Sebukwe said about Kwame always studying, that this man, he was a voracious reader and a voracious studier. And it wasn't just, studying just to study, it was to advance the revolution and to advance our activism. And I remember I believe he went to the Bronx School of Science, and he talked about being in high school. One of his best friends was the son of a leader in the U.S. Communist Party, and that at this school, it accelerated Kwame's political, ideological development and his political activism. So at a very young age, he had acquired, this kind of voracious love for studying and engaging in politics and political activity and political action. And so by the time he got to Howard University, he was ready. He was ready to be a part of SNCC. He was ready to be a part of the movement. And so he always taught us through his example and through his life and through his work in the AAPRP, the importance of work and study. And we know that that's the foundation of our organization, is the importance of knowing ourselves, knowing our history, and studying the political climate. And so when he talks about socialism and Zionism in Haiti, even more so today, it's glaringly important that we study these things, and from the history that he talked about into today in terms of what's going on today, the importance of study.
Right on. Brother Imani, did you want to jump in?
Well, we have no more to say about what Kwame used to use "we," because we've heard from our sister who's the backbone. So we relaxed our jawbones on that one. but in reference to the clip that we saw, and we really want to thank Comrade Shabanduka for sharing that. You noticed that the song was Bob Marley's redemption song. I know that Comrade Kwame said that's one of his favorite songs. The part where it says, "Emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind." I think that's one of the reasons why he loves that song so much. In terms of his simplicity, I want to share a story with you when he came to Guinea-Bissau. Our comrades met him at the airport, the youth wing of the PIDC, with some of the PIDC organizer and the pioneers, the Milka Cabral pioneers, called the Abel Jassy pioneers. So they received him almost like a head of state. They tied up this scarf around him, saluted him and all that, put him into these cars and took him away. But the next day, when cars came to pick him up, it was one of the cars that came was a pickup truck. And so some comrades jumped in the pickup truck. Kwame jumped on the back of the pickup truck like a simple person. Another time, some of the cars were living. They said, "Let's jump in the taxi and go." He's really punctual, very punctual comrade. So this is what we want to add on to relax our jawbones on the "we." And I think a lot of us have followed behind that "we." Not me, we.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to highlight that, given the state of the world and activism today. I thought it was just an important point to highlight. I know we have one more clip to get to, but I did want to ask, while we have this chance, I can't help but to ask this one question. I have so many, but I want to at least ask this one. Thinking again about where we are today, Kwame Ture was incredibly consistent in his call for a united front and being unified. And we saw some of it discussed in the presentations already. But I'm just wondering, I have to, I always wonder, where is room, or where did he see room, or where do you all see room today for critique of some in our community and in our struggle with whom we may wildly disagree, or who take political paths decidedly in opposition to the ideas that many of us are working with today? Because I always wondered that about Ture. I never had a chance to ask him this, but I've always wondered how he managed the very public need and call for a united front, but what I'm sure has to have been severe criticisms that he would have of many of those in leadership at the time as many of us have criticism of leadership today. But what might we learn from his example, I guess is what I'm asking, in terms of how to deal with public disagreement or criticism of those in the struggle or just within the community. Anybody want to, Sister Shabanduka and Nahanda, and what, either of you, the backbones, go first?
I only wanted to maybe approach part of that in that Kwame Ture, what he wanted to do was set an example for the masses. And so he was really speaking to the masses when he tried to bring leaders together. He's speaking to those people in the organizations and the constituents of those leaders. But he really knows that this movement, this African United Front, really has to be built from the bottom up, and that the people who are represented by these leaders have to call for it. They have to demand that these leaders are going to unify on whatever level. So that's my contribution to it. Someone probably has an expanded answer.
Thank you.
I'll just add, I think Kwame, like the rest of us in the AAPRP and those of us who believe in revolution, also took guidance from Malcolm X. And Malcolm said, don't air our dirty laundry in public. And we know that there's a lot of dirty laundry that we have. And so, if our opposition with each other, our disagreement with each other is not principled, then I think that we have to figure out, where the points of unity are. And that was the point of the African United Front. But clearly, all people of African descent are not necessarily with the people. And so I think that Kwame would critique publicly those that he saw as enemies of the people. But I think he was very principled and very strategic and very tactical in building that kind of unity, which he would call either functional unity or, a united front, where we may not agree on everything politically or ideologically, but we could agree on one or two things to build this united front. And I think that was a principle for him. And I agree with Sister Chabanduka that this was an important example, because we could see it today in just about every kind of organization, every kind of movement that we have, that these things just divide us and tear us apart, often when we could have these conversations behind closed doors, as Malcolm taught us.
Thank you. Brother Imani, you good? Did you want to jump in?
Don't want to come in with the jawbone after the backbone, but just want to say that criticism is a principle, and that we cannot abandon it at all. But in terms of unity, Kwame gave an example and even wrote it down for us, that we must always be a factor of unity. But of course, unity presupposes organization. When we organize the African United Front, or some people call it the Black United Front, we do it from the left to the right, from the reformists, the moderates, to the revolutionaries. So criticism is principle, but we don't attack. What's most important is to organize our people. And the only way to do this is having unity. That's the only thing I want to add.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Sister Nahanda, were you asking to jump back in, or were you just waving in agreement?
Oh, sorry. I got family members visiting.
Oh. We're waving to them.
we don't have to keep emphasizing the jawbone, backbone point. I think we got it, Imani.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So I know we have, before we come back. Oh,
go
ahead. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Before we go to the last segment, I just wanted to shout out all the, the people I've seen on chat. We have representatives from Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Tanzania, Britain, France, Canada, every region of the U.S. and probably some other places that the Philippines. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So because we're a Pan-African party. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to stream early to make sure that our comrades at home, our brothers and sisters at home in Africa, would be able to view this at a reasonable hour, because it's getting kind of late there now. But we always keep Africa primary. It's always our first consideration when we make plans. So I just wanted to mention that.
Right on. Thank you for that. All right, everybody. So before we come back for the closing remarks from our AAPRP panelists, we have one more clip. We'll get to that just right now. So stick around.
Karl Michael, pour moi, il a été un grand homme, un grand panafricaniste. Il a beaucoup aimé l'Afrique, il a aimé la Guinée. Il est venu en Guinée, et quand il est venu en Guinée, pour moi, il s'est très très bien comporté. Il a été un de nos grands militants. Il a milité dans le PDG RDA. Et il a pris le nom de Kwame Ture. Kwame, le nom de le président Kwame Ture, pour la famille Ture. Et il a adopté ce nom-là. Donc Kwame Ture, quand il est venu ici, c'était un de nos grands militants. Un homme très sincère, très cordial. Il a épousé une femme guinéenne, il lui a fait des enfants. Tous ses enfants aussi portent des noms guinéens. Et Kwame Ture, quand je suis sortie de prison après la mort de mon mari, j'étais allée chez ma mère à Massanta. Kwame Ture, qui n'avait qu'une petite voiture, il a pris sa petite voiture, il est allé jusqu'à Massanta chez moi pour me saluer. Et cela, je retiens parce que ça m'a beaucoup touchée. Quand il est venu, nous l'avons reçu dans la famille, dans la maison de ma mère. Ma mère a préparé du manioc pour lui, il a beaucoup aimé. Il mangeait le manioc, il mangeait comme nous. Il se comportait comme nous. Et vraiment, c'était un grand ami. C'est ce que je retiens de lui. C'est un choix politique qu'il a fait. Il suivait le combat politique du PDG. Et il a été un adhérent de cette politique. Et c'est en conséquence qu'il est venu vivre ici. Il a accepté de vivre jusqu'à la fin de sa vie. Kwame Ture est mort ici. Ses parents sont venus des États-Unis, mais il a voulu être enterré ici. Donc, il repose en Guinée. Et vraiment, c'était pour nous un grand ami. Je crois que les premiers panafricanistes étaient très sincères et très honnêtes. Je ne sais pas s'il en va de même à ce moment. Ça, je ne sais pas.
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We know that through our life experience, that when you work for the people will never forsake you. So we are never worried about our conditions. We know that no matter what conditions we find ourselves in, our people will take care of us. So we want to thank you for all the love you've demonstrated. We're honored to be here tonight. We want to thank all the student organizations, all of the deans, all of the different peoples involved in putting this together. Of course, as a student at Howard, I know what it takes, and I know the hard and serious work that's involved in it, so we want to thank you as one who knows the work that you have done. We want to thank so many, many brothers and sisters who we've seen in the audience, but we haven't seen in years. And we're glad to see a very good cross-section of generations here tonight. We are very honored to be at Rankin's Chapel, and Dean Richardson is only continuing a tradition that has to be continued. At my time, it was Dean Crawford. And one of the things about Rankin's Chapel is that it was always open for meetings of this kind when other areas of the university was closed. So this tradition, of course, is a tradition which continues. It has to do with the very tradition of our people. Our people who have never seen religion as the opium of the masses. That, of course, coming directly out of the European culture. It being a fact that Europe has never produced any universal religion, all of them has entered from the outside. And as Michael Laplace, the founder of the Ba'ath Party, properly points out, religion is alien to the character and history of Europe, end of quote. Therefore, the struggle of Africans ensuring that religion and revolution go hand in hand is one that we must thank our culture for. It has asserted itself against great onslaught in the world. And we hold high that if one is truly religious, one must be revolutionary. I once saw some Christians in Harlem on a Sunday morning crossing over drug addicts to go to church. And I was outside talking to drug addicts. And they told me that I should come to church. And I told them that Jesus Christ, peace be upon his name, and missed the Sabbath day for a dumb animal in a well. I think this church for a human being. So we are glad of this tradition. We want to make some remarks to you tonight along the topic which you have chosen, which is an excellent topic. But we want to do it in the African tradition. Malcolm X carried on the tradition, though we don't have the same format, by calling them fireside chats. Then once in a while you need a fireside chat. You know, sometimes some people do not understand the real essence of our struggle. The real essence of our struggle is eternal. That is to say, there's no time when you will struggle for the people and then after a while you sit back and relax and enjoy life. This is reactionary thinking of the worst order. Simply because the more you struggle, the more you know. And the more you know, the more you're able to do. And your people are going to need you to do until you die. Therefore, if you understand this, you prepare yourself for eternal struggle. We want to have a fireside chat, just open up some assumptions so we all understand what we're talking about. Some people may think that we're talking about you be a SNCC member, you wage a struggle in SNCC for a couple of years, and then after that you become a congressman and do nothing for the people. Kwame Ture, a great son of Africa, says that it is most irresponsible to undertake a task voluntarily, which we say is indispensable to the people's happiness, and before completing the task, to stop. This will compromise, he continues, the behavior of generations to come. This is the first contradiction we want to point out to you between you and your older generation of Africans who are on the front line. They thought that they were just to be on the front lines for a little while and then integrate into American society and enjoy life for the rest, and enjoy the time for the rest of their life. This is a disservice and a betrayal of principles to people.
You must reject this path instinctively. I mean, you must instinctively reject it. The mistake to a path is the path of truth. A prerequisite for truth is consistency. We're not saying that everyone who's consistent is correct. No, you can be consistently incorrect. And we've seen that many times from many officials in the American government. All the time. I mean, for example, they've been consistently incorrect on Cuba for 30 years, and they're persistently incorrect. So you can be consistent, but this is incorrect. But before we pay attention to you, you must be consistent. Once you're inconsistent, there's no need to pay attention to you. If today you're in this camp, the next day you're in this camp, the next day in another camp, next time another camp, if your behavior is inconsistent, we know it cannot be correct. So just in order for us to look at you, if you are representing truth to us, you must be consistent, whether correctly or incorrectly. Therefore, those who have taken this path have been inconsistent. Therefore, they've taken the path of lies. Lies can never free our people. Only the truth will free our people. Only the truth. Therefore, this is one contradiction to look at. We do not come to praise. Your job as a younger generation coming is to assess properly what went on before you, to see what contributions you can make to advance the struggle, and what errors you must correct from the ones they made. This task must be properly understood, especially the task of correcting errors. The Chinese say, once you make a mistake, and you know it's a mistake, if you don't correct the mistake, you've made your second mistake. We are revolutionaries here, and mistakes are fatal. Therefore, we must correct them. We urge each of you to come and to look carefully at the errors they made. You must come to correct them. You must come to correct the errors, and you must come to improve upon the strategy to go forward. Now, we've already said from the very beginning that the struggle is eternal. Once you decide to struggle for your people, you better pick it up. Look at those panthers who came out, said they wanted to fight for the people, and now they're doing all sorts of nonsense, everything other than fighting for the people. They've compromised generations of strugglers. These generations come to say, well, if they started the struggle, maybe we should start too. And then you know what they say? Drugs destroyed the panthers. Drugs? The police destroyed the panthers. Ex-Panther, because he ain't nothing but a pussycat now. I heard ex-Panther say, Huey Newton was killed by drugs. Huey Newton was killed by the police. Who brings drugs in the community? Who knows all the drug dealers in the community? Who manipulates all the drug dealers in the community? Who takes the drug dealers and informers into organizations? Who kills Huey Newton? You must be careful in your analysis. Yeah. Any analysis you make of oppressed people in every area of their life where you leave out the enemy will never give you a correct analysis. You will end up blaming the people. Every analysis you make, you must make of this enemy. This is what your generation before you did not do. Matter of fact, they were trying to make believe they had no enemies. And as soon as everything was over, they could sit down peacefully and work out things with those who were not really our enemies. An oppressed people must have an enemy. There's no such thing as an inferior people. We know that. There are things as oppressed people. And they're not oppressed by superior people. They are oppressed by people who are better organized than they are. The reason why the Ku Klux Klan terrorizes us is because they are organized. They have meetings every week. And the members go to the meetings every week. They discuss racist ideology. They ingrain it. They internalize it. And then they have programs. funds for it. They even make uniforms and things like that. How many of us can say we go to meetings every week for the people? How many of us can say we make uniforms for the people's organizations? Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. Wherever you find the people on the continent or off the continent, they are the poorest people on the face of the earth. Some get confused as there's others in the generation who went before you. You must not. That great son of Africa, Kwame Ture, said it correctly. Seek ye first the political kingdom. We must be politically organized, not economically organized. We have no economic problem. We are just politically not organized. This is our only problem. How could you build up economic strength and you think you're going to let an enemy let you have economic strength when you don't even have military strength to defend the economically that you say you go? You can only go economically when you are secure, politically and militarily. They don't want revolution, they want a piece of the American pie. We don't want a piece of the American pie. We cannot want it. The American pie is based on genocide and slavery. We want to destroy it. You say all the time.
Greetings again, everybody, as we bring everybody back up to unfortunately wrap up. As long, I know we've been here for a couple of hours, but it's really hard to turn off Kwame Ture, so to shut it down. But before you all go with your concluding comments, I just want to say from those of us at BPM, I'm very appreciative that we were able to support this project. I'm very happy, of course, to support the AAPRP and its continuing work. I'm very grateful to those who have joined from all around the world and who will see this later from all around the world. Anyway, so and always happy to raise up Brother Kwame Ture and this broader analysis of world struggle and African struggle. So Sister Shavanduka, I'll turn it to you. You have principally put all of this together, including all that we have seen and heard from today. So I want to publicly thank you for all the work you've done behind the scenes in making this look and sound as good as it does and has, and for making sure all of us have gathered. So anyway, thank you very much. I'm done. I turn it over to you and all of you. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, Brother Jarrett, Brother Comrade Jarrett, and Black Power Media as well. This was definitely a collective effort and it actually been going on over the past few years, and it continues. You know, this work is ongoing. So we're reaching out and asking people who have archives, you know, people who have photos, people who have memories, to please check in with us so that we can continue to collect these archives. And so our true history and the true history of the AAPRP and the true history of Kwame Ture can be told. I just wanted to, before we go, I want to make sure that I acknowledge a few people. Brother Daoudi, who always helps us with our technical issues and putting things together. He stays behind the scenes, but he's definitely present here today. So I wanted to thank him. I wanted to mention that Kwame Ture's cousin, Sister Rhonda, is on is viewing today, as well as Kwame Ture's son, Boka Ture. He's been chatting with me through WhatsApp, but he's present and, you know, he greets everybody. I also wanted to just also make sure that I acknowledge the PDG, the Democratic Party of Guinea, for creating or making sure that clip, that interview with Madam Haja Andre Ture happened. She's well into her 80s, and she's a very, very strong sister, a powerful sister. As she mentioned in the clip, she spent 4 years in prison after her husband died. She and her her son, who was in his early 20s, they spent 4 years in prison in Guinea. And her son Muhammad and his wife are actually in the claws of the U.S. government right now. They are serving a 6-year sentence or 7-year sentence in federal prison. So we think about Madam Ture every day and all the adversity that she has experienced, but her humanity stands, her fervor, her revolutionary fervor stands, and she too is a model for African women. So I wanted to mention that, and I wanted to mention a few people who helped to build the party who are either no longer with us, like Lamin Janga and Sister Maisha, Sister Mawina, of course. There are many. There are some who are still with us, like Amadou Lee and Sekou Mbaki. So we need to hear from them. We're going to continue to collect interviews as we go. So again, the history can be told. And so go ahead, Nehanda and Imani, please go ahead and share whatever you want to close with, and then we'll be ready to end.
Thank you, Sister Chabanduka and Brother Jared, for everything, putting this together. As I said, it's such an honor. And I'll be very brief. We know that Kwame Ture, our dear brother, is a revolutionary and will also always be a revolutionary and always be a guiding light for us, our North Star. But I think it's equally important to remember that Kwame Ture was a son. He loved his mother and father, that he was a brother of 4 sisters that loved him and he loved his sisters, that he was a husband, that he was a father, I should say is, and that we need to remember him as a human being and as a revolutionary, because he indeed is both of those for us. And so thank you so much for allowing us into your spaces today.
Yeah, we want to give our sincere gratitude to our comrade brothers and sisters of the Black Power Media, Comrade Jared Ball, and we want to really thank our comrade sister Shabanduka for all of her sacrifices. I remember one time we sent a response to her, and we got the message back from her. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning where she is. That's what we said. But now we'll be conscious about what time we send her messages. We really want to thank her. I want to thank Comrade Nehanda. I want to thank our comrades, brothers and sisters of the biological family of Kwame Ture for sharing Kwame Ture with humanity, for sharing him, for all the sacrifices with our people. And we would like to take advantage of his 80th birthday to make a pledge that we will continue the path, going down the path that he helped to open up, understanding that it's only the organized people that we get power from. And the only things that our people lack is organization and common ideology. So we will do our best to follow the example of him. As he said, we should do better than him, to make sure that we organize by example and let our example organize. Continue that work with the African United Front, being tolerant from the left to the right, from the reformers to the revolutionaries. Always been a humble servant and guide. Continue that work to help organize the revolutionary parties in Africa and the diaspora to form an all-African Committee for Political Coordination, or whatever name is called by. And just been that humble, loving, as he said, the brother on the corner. So we thank you, comrades. Happy birthday, Brother Kwame. Comrade Kwame.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Ready for the revolution.
Happy day, comrade.
Absolutely. Ready for the revolution, everybody.
We want to remind everyone that the AAPRP is here for you. If you are interested in the work that we're doing, please look us up on social media. You see our website is scrolling across on the ticker, but you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of the above. Please check us out. We ask you to join an organization, because organization is the weapon of the oppressed, and we are oppressed. We hope to do some further programming on Tuesday, so check out our social media so you can find out when and where. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Ready for the revolution.
Ready for the revolution.